All right, we'll get started here with Auburn defensive lineman Dontavius Russell. Again, we'll open for question and answers. If you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. We'll go down here on the left, front row.
I'm just very curious, having won the West last year, what are expectations for this team this year? Is this team put together, we're winning it all or bust, or what is the attitude?
We're in a position where we have a lot of people coming back, and I just think that puts us in a position to be able to know that we can compete with most of the teams we play throughout our season. So that's kind of where we are right now, and since the season hasn't even started yet, to even think that far ahead.
We'll go standing over here on the right side.
I just want to get your thoughts on LSU coming to Jordan-Hare Stadium this year after the game you guys had with them last year.
The past couple of years, we kind of went back and forth between the two. Almost like whoever's playing at home almost wins the game, and it's been some good games. Like a couple of years ago, I think we won a game off of all field goals or something like that. So it's always something bizarre. So I always look forward to playing LSU.
Go down here on the front row, all the way to the right.
Deshaun was saying, if he has success, it's because you guys are doing something right up front. And, Gus called you one of the most underrated players in the SEC. Do you feel like you're overlooked in the defensive line as a whole? And what are your strengths along that group?
Are you saying, do I feel like our whole defensive line is overlooked?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I feel like with team success comes overall success, you know what I mean? So I don't feel like we're overlooked, and I feel like we get enough recognition as it is. And I feel like the acknowledgement of people saying that they think you're overrated is acknowledgement enough, so I don't really take it as a disrespect or anything like that.
If you got a question, raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. Go right here in the middle of the second row.
Dontavius, with you guys having one of the most deep defensive lines in the country, how do you feel play to play doing that? Do you feel like, you can maybe just give it your all because there's a guy who can rotate in behind you? You're always giving it all you're out there?
I'm always giving it my all, but it's not but it's exactly how it feels. You don't have to worry about a situation where if you're not playing in the game, it's the caliber of talent goes down. So we can just rotate guys in and rotate guys out and not see a drop in production. So we're in a good spot.
We'll go standing back here on the left side.
Dontavius, what do you remember about Will Muschamp and his season with y'all a few years ago?
Coach Muschamp was a guy that recruited me coming out of high school to go to Florida. I ultimately decided to come to Auburn, but I was happy when we got the opportunity to play under Coach Muschamp. He brought a lot of energy to our team and kind of got us started on the turn to turn into a better defense, which we became the year after he left. So he got a lot of things rolling that we needed, and I appreciate him for that.
Go standing in the camera position right there on the front row, left side.
That opener against Washington, is that a game that'll get your attention, really get you guys fired up in fall camp? And could you just speak to the challenge of opening with the premier team in the country?
That's something that at Auburn that we do pretty frequently. For the past 4 years or so, we've played pretty big games at the beginning of the season. My first year here starting at Auburn, we ended up playing Louisville in Lamar Jackson's first game. We played Clemson the past 2 years at the beginning of the season. So it's one of those things that we're kind of used to, but you still have to acknowledge the fact that we are playing a high caliber opponent. So
We'll go to the camera position on the right side on the front row.
Coach Malzahn shared with us that coaching is about more than just winning to him, it's a ministry. How have you seen that firsthand?
I'm on Coach Malzahn's leadership committee, and that's one thing that he always talked to us about, is how do we feel like, what can he do to help us, or what can he do to move us forward in where we want to be in our lives. And he always puts us in position. He takes the team on mission trips. He's heavily involved in the FCA, and just through seeing that, it's not something that he's pushing on you, but it's more of an example that gives you the push to be a part of that ministry that he does have.
We'll go here to the left side on the second row, right in the middle.
Dontavius, there's a lot of questions regarding the offensive line this year, and you, of course, as a defensive lineman, get to see them, up close and personal in practice. What are your thoughts on this year's offensive line?
Just from practicing against the offensive line, I think it's a situation where they just have to find the right guys to be a part of that offensive line. It was kind of the same way last year where they had to get the ball rolling on having the right guys in the game at the same time, but they have the talent, and it's not a situation of finding talent. It's a situation of putting it in the right place, so that's why I feel like we are with the offensive line.
We'll stay on that same row all the way to the left.
What sort of similarities do you see in Cam Martin and the various other Auburn running backs that you've practiced against during your time?
Cam Martin, I feel like Cam Martin is kind of in a position that Cap was a couple years ago behind Trey Mason. It's not like with him, it wasn't a situation where he didn't have the ability. It was a situation where the guy in front of you was just really good. So, and who do you pick? You know, you pick the guy that's been there. So I feel like he'll come in and perform just as well as every other running back that's rushed for 1,000 yards under Gus Malzahn.
Again, if you have questions, raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. Go down here on the right side, all the way to the end of the second row.
When you came in as a freshman, what player on the defensive line took you under their wing, and is there a player that you sort of are mentoring now and teaching the ropes?
When I first got here, some players I kind of gravitated towards were Angelo Blackson was a guy that helped me. He's in the league now. Gabe Wright talked to me a good bit. Darius Owens, he was a defensive end here that I kind of hung around a lot. And now I kind of stay with Tyrone Truesdale a lot. He plays directly behind me. He rotates after me most of the times in games. And I just try to talk to him about staying positive in situations and that it's you're just young right now and everything will come in time.
We'll go down here on the front row, all the way to them.
Gus was saying he thought that you could have been drafted after last year. You know, what led to your decision to come back, and what do you want to work on before you take that next jump?
My decision to come back to Auburn was purely based off of me getting my education and finishing up. Because I just felt like the window for football would be open later on in life, so it wasn't. But I didn't feel like I would want to come back after playing in the NFL like some guys have to do. So I was like, let's take it one step at a time. And a kind of a way that I kind of explained it to people, someone in the past is, say for instance, if you climb a mountain or something, right, and you have a safety rope. And if I moved on to the NFL, I have to keep going up the mountain without my safety rope. But now that I have my degree, I kind of won't fall even if even if it ends.
Any other questions? Raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. We'll go to the camera position on the right side, front row.
Just wanted to do a follow-up on that other question. Do you have any personal stories of something he's helped you with or walked you through, or what's it been like if you participated in the mission trips? What was that like?
The thing about the mission trip is I was asked to go pretty early on, and I was kind of hesitant at first because I had never been out of the country, and just how glad he was to hear that I was even considered to go. And when we got there, it was a completely different experience, getting to know him on a more personal level apart from football. And one thing that he always talks about when we did go on that mission trip is the walls kind of come down, you know, you kind of get to see people in a different light. And that's a thing that I was happy to see, get to see him in that different light as well as my teammates. And again, I'm just happy that he does things like that.
We'll go standing over here on the left side in the back.
You talked about your
I can't find you.
right here.
All right.
There you go. There you go. You talked about the degree being your own safety net and all that. How old were you when you developed that approach, and kind of where did that all come from?
It's kind of been from an early age. I have both of my parents in my life, and my dad kind of leans towards the importance of athletics, and my mom leans towards the importance of sports. So with everything I've ever did in my life, I tried to please both. So that's why I've always excelled in football while excelling in the classroom. So I just feel like it's been something that's lasted throughout my life. It's not something that just appeared or, So I've always thought this way.
We'll go standing over here on the right side.
I apologize if this has already been asked, but Marlon Davidson, what type of player is he? What do you see from him? As Coach Malzahn said a minute ago, this guy started as a freshman, which you don't see too often. How big of an impact player is he?
I mean, he's very impactful. He started as a freshman, as you said, and he's played beside me in the past 2 years. And just to not have to worry about someone not doing their assignment or letting somebody through that gap is so helpful as far as me as a defensive tackle, linebackers, and the defense as a whole. Because setting the edge is one of the most important things for a defense, and that's something that he can do with his frame and body size.
We'll stay on the right side, standing in the back.
Coach Gus Malzahn says he tries not to cuss, and he uses different words like maybe darn. Have you heard him, try to prevent from saying cuss words? And what are maybe some of the funny words you've heard him say instead of trying to say that word?
He says "but" a lot, like stinking butt, all that stuff. But the thing is, it doesn't seem unnatural because it seems like who he is. Going back to the question she asked me, it more seems like just the person that he is rather than he's trying to actively not cuss. I just don't think he does most of the time. So.
Is that the funniest word, though, that you've heard him say?
I mean, I can't really think of anything right off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
We good?